Oh, don't get me started in this Barcelona thing again. I've never heard anything so ridiculous. I've never heard anything so stupid. Barcelona, La Liga, amateur hour, nonsense. I don't care if they've got 14 injuries. You're at one of the biggest clubs in the world. You've got a squad. You've got reserves. Leganes had their squad, right? So, end of January, the squad hasn't been pilfered.
Yeah.
God. Yeah. That's us. We've got this to the end of the season. Well, this is what. Oh, hold on. Here's big bad Barca come along, and they need a player. So Leganes, you know, it's not fair.
See, it's not fair. Hey, no. You know, when you want a soft spot, you go for Craig.
It's all about being fair. Sid Lowe is with us. Sid, was Craig's reaction shared by those in Spain?
Well, let's just start with, you've just said Sid Lowe is here, and I'm thinking, and Craig has just said this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I'm thinking there's plenty of stupider things that Craig's seen, starting with me. Look, I mean, the reaction has been very bad to this, but I think in a way it's good news, because of course this is because of the peculiarities of the Spanish rules. We've never had, I think, a scenario quite as extreme as this in terms of the damage that this does to another club. And I think what this will do is, for the very first time, it will force a rethink on these rules. It's interesting that listening to Leganes' CEO today, he said, no, we don't blame Barcelona at all. We don't blame Martin Braithwaite at all. He did what he wanted to do, and he did the right thing, and he trained with us to the last minute. Barcelona paid the buyout clause. That's the rules. They took advantage of it. We think the rules are unfair. You then get Josep Maria Bartomeu, the president of Barcelona, who says, yeah, we think it's unfair that Leganes were not put in a position, or were not allowed to make an emergency signing themselves to make up for this. So I think the focus now is on the rules, and the focus now is that this will probably change. Because as Craig says, while it might not be the stupidest thing he's ever seen, it's certainly pretty unfair.
Are Leganes going to be allowed to sign someone, Sid?
No, they're not. Right, so let me explain, because, I mean, the thing to do is to put this in very simple terms. As the Spanish Federation rules say that in the event of an emergency based on a long-term injury, that injury has to be proven or independently verified that it's over a 5-month injury. A team is allowed to sign a player to replace that player. They are only allowed to sign from Spain because, of course, this is a Spanish rule. So, in other words, you can't go and sign from England or Germany. And also this player, and this is worth pointing out, cannot play in the Champions League. He can only play in La Liga. So that's the first step. And then the other Spanish peculiarity that makes this difficult, of course, is that every Spanish player has, by law, a buyout clause, at which point when you pay it, the other club can't stop you. So not only are you going out of the market to buy a player, you're going out of the market, but at a time when players have official values, at which point the club, in this case Leganes, can do nothing to stop them. And that is the only scenario in which you're allowed to buy an emergency player, is if you can prove that there's a 5-month injury. So now, unless Javier Aguirre, the Leganes manager, goes round in training tomorrow trying to break the legs of his players to be able to have an emergency signing, they will not be allowed one. Now, of course, this now, as I say, this opens people's eyes to the fact that this policy, which of course was good in intention, because the intention was we want to give clubs an insurance. We don't want clubs to have to pay a terrible price for a really bad piece of luck. But of course they didn't think it through, because now Barcelona had an emergency and they've created in Leganes an emergency that is 10 times bigger. Leganes will almost certainly go down now.
What do you make of the rule? As Sid said, 5 months a player had to be injured for. Spanish FA saying can make any exception to the transfer window if it's 5 months.
I have to tell you, it's unnecessary. See, I don't even know why you have this rule in place. This is why you have transfer markets and you have a transfer window. And then this is sort of like a kind of a bypass to the transfer window. And you say to yourself, well, it's an insurance policy. Well, look, why don't you take care of your insurance policies when you have the transfer window? That's indeed the time and the place in order to address the needs for your team. And when you're making these decisions during those transfer windows, you should address need areas. And you should address areas in which perhaps you have to think about, we need depth, we need backups, we need areas on the field where we need to have more than one player that can occupy that area and more than one player that can do that job. It is out there for everybody to take advantage of during the transfer window. This other thing, emergency player, what? Emergency transfer, it's nonsense. It really is.
But the base of it, there's nothing wrong with the premise. Unfortunately, it's ended up you're being cruel to be kind. You're being kind to Barcelona, but you've been absolutely cruel to Leganes. Now, the fact that it's all gone through isn't going to change anything unless they actually do something about it. Will in a couple of months' time this all be swept under the carpet? As long as it's not swept under the carpet, then it's something that actually has ended up being good for the league as a whole. Just right now, it's only good for Barcelona.
But I think my point would be that if you take just this situation, but really in general, if you were to consider what teams could possibly take advantage of this rule, are teams that can actually afford an 18 million euro buyout clause. In this case, Barcelona would be. Do you think Leganes has that power? Do you think Leganes, even if, as Sid just said, the coach went around and broke people's legs, right? And now they go after a player. Do you think that they have the power to go and buy that player? No, they don't.
Well, Sid, let's ask Sid how long has this been in place? I mean, has this only been a couple of years, or has this been like 18 years?
No.
Go on, Sid.
No, this is a long-running policy to the extent that I think it was in 2013. So what's that now? That's 7 years ago, 7 years ago. The federation was asked to overturn this rule. And at that point turned it down. Now, as I say, I think this may well be positive because I don't think we've had an example as extreme as this, one that's had such a massive impact as this is almost certainly going to have. And so I think it's possible that this does create a change in this rule and it does end it. Someone posed it to me in a different way the other day. And obviously, as Ali says, it's absolutely right that this benefits the big clubs, as if the system isn't already tilted in the big clubs' favour. But someone said this to me the other day, and I thought this is a really interesting way of looking at it. Imagine if Barcelona had been given the chance to sign a player, and they're battling it out for the La Liga title with Real Madrid, and they'd gone to Real Madrid and said, here, we're going to pay Karim Benzema's buyout clause.
Yeah.
And we're going to go and win the league. Now, obviously, you need the player to agree. But that's another example of how this really can adulterate the competition. Leganes, by the way, have been left with, in their entire squad, this is a team that's already in the relegation zone, in their entire squad now, there are 8 goals in the whole squad. They are in massive trouble.
And Sid, what really sticks in the craw is the fact that Barcelona actually sold a couple of attacking players, didn't they, during the January transfer window?
Yeah, I mean, this is right. This is where I kind of backtrack slightly because, of course, you look at this and you say, Martin Braithwaite's not to blame. Barcelona aren't really to blame because they've taken advantage of a rule that exists. It's the rule to blame. But, of course, part of the reason that Barcelona are in such a dire situation is of their own making. So they go into the winter transfer window and look for a striker. They don't get that striker, but not only do they fail to get that striker, but they get rid of 2 strikers from the youth system, who, by the way, both scored tonight, as if to underline how daft this was. So in terms of the net gain of the transfer window, they thought they were getting 1 striker. They lost 2 strikers. They're 3 strikers down on the winter transfer window. And then, obviously, at the end of it, they get someone injured, and so that's why this has happened.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.